Hi, I'm Mike Christensen. Welcome to my couch, where I've spent way too much time in my pajamas over the last year. I was born in California in the Bay Area, but grew up in southeastern Idaho. I've lived in Utah since 1999 and in Salt Lake City since 2003. I have a bachelor's in geography and a graduate certificate in GIS. I worked in GIS for a decade at jobs ranging from commercial real estate to planning and permitting for high voltage transmission lines to doing field work in a four-wheel drive truck with a Trimble GPS for the state of Utah. I eventually realized that I really wanted to help expand passenger rail in the US. So I went back to school at the University of Utah and 3 years ago completed a Master of City and Metropolitan Planning and also an interdisciplinary graduate certificate in sustainability. While in grad school, I got deeply involved in the Congress for the New Urbanism, earned the CNU-A accreditation, and have been serving on the board of directors of the CNU Utah chapter. I also got deeply involved in passenger rail advocacy and now serve on the board of directors of the National Rail Passengers Association. And finally, I completed the AICP requirements last month, and I'm now a certified planner. For my master's program, I researched how best to expand passenger rail across Utah and into neighboring states using existing freight rail infrastructure. My research revealed how diversifying transportation in Utah would provide an impetus for economic development in rural Utah. Unfortunately, Utah lacks the institutional capacity to plan and implement statewide transit. So after finishing my master's, I founded the nonprofit Utah Rail Passengers Association and hired myself as executive director in order to fill the vacuum until the state of Utah can get its ducks in a row. So there are two unique things transportation-wise about Utah. Number one, Utah is a state that is notoriously hostile to the concept of tolling and toll roads. Yet we do have one toll road, the Adams Avenue Parkway, which is located in Washington Terrace. Residents of Washington Terrace and South Ogden wanted a mile-long road as a shortcut down the hill to Interstate 84, which would shorten trips by over 4 miles. However, no elected leaders were willing to round up funding for the project. So some local business people funded it privately and charged a toll of 50 cents per axle or $1 per car. Number two, even though Utah is an arid state, we still have a ferry. It's literally a ferry in the desert. The Charles Hall Ferry crosses Lake Powell between Bullfrog and Hall's Crossing. The 5-mile trip across the reservoir takes 25 minutes and eliminates the need to travel 146 miles or 3 hours by highway. The fare is $10 per pedestrian or bicyclist and $25 per car. That's hard to answer since I've got a lot of transportation heroes. I'm going to mention two. One is Professor Keith Bartholomew, who served as my advisor while I was working on my master's. The other is all of the many passenger rail advocates that I've met over the past decade who work tirelessly to advocate for funding that keeps Amtrak and public transportation systems around the country going. In addition to the opportunity to network and hang out with like-minded geeks, I also TPD in order to make my unique perspective that bridges passenger rail advocacy and transportation planning available to others. Recently, Amtrak released the Amtrak Connects Us vision map. There are also dozens of other projects in the works that weren't far enough along to make it onto that map. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm happy to lend my skills to help make it a reality. Well, all of the above and more. I live in a neighborhood in Salt Lake City that is walkable enough, bikeable enough, and transit served enough that I actually got rid of my car over 4 years ago and haven't looked back. I still occasionally ride in cars and sometimes rent cars when I travel, but I often go months at a time without even setting foot in a car. Planes. So, yeah, I've been traveling around the country on Amtrak a lot lately. So, the last time I flew on a plane was actually over 4 years ago. This map shows the Amtrak territory that I've covered. Blue lines show where I have yet to ride, red lines show where I've ridden, and yellow lines show where I've ridden on detours. I also love to bike, and a lot of my rides have been on bike share as I've traveled around the country. Since 2013, I've ridden bike share systems in 25 cities around the country. I'm also happy to give my view on what works well and what doesn't when it comes to bike share. I also geek out over transit, especially the New York City subway, and often wonder if I know more about the subway than the average New Yorker. So I'm going to geek out one last time, and as I close this video, I'm going to show a video of Amtrak's westbound California Zephyr departing Salt Lake City while I display my Twitter handles below.